Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Richard Simmons? He is the topic of the 2022 TMC documentary titled, What Really Happened to Richard Simmons? Just a reminder that I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of Richard Simmons, move to the timeline of the incident, which in this case is Richard's retreat from public life, then move to my analysis. Milton Teagle Simmons was born in New Orleans, Louisiana on July 12, 1948. He went by the name Richard. His father worked as a master of ceremonies. Later, he worked in thrift stores. His mother was a fan dancer who would travel to various places and perform. Later, she sold cosmetics for a retailer. Richard had one older brother. Richard was born without a full set of bones in one of his feet, although it's not clear exactly how much this affected him. By the age of 4, Richard was overweight due to overeating. He would later say he had a compulsion for fried food. Richard continued overeating for many years. By 15 years old, he was 182 pounds. Richard said that he went to his first Halloween party dressed as a couch. People usually don't think of couches as being frightening, like they wouldn't be associated with Halloween, but Richard may have been ahead of his time. In 2019, a low-budget, direct-to-DVD New Zealand comedy horror film titled Killer Sofa was released, although it was really about a killer recliner, not a killer sofa. By the time Richard graduated from high school, he had reached 268 pounds. He was bullied repeatedly because of his weight, and he had no friends growing up. Richard engaged in extreme dieting and lost 137 pounds. However, he ended up in the hospital for a while. In the 1970s, he moved to Los Angeles and worked at a restaurant in Beverly Hills as the maitre d'. Richard was interested in fitness and wanted to start his own exercise studio. He looked around at the market and noticed that all of the exercise studios in the area were geared toward people who were already in good physical condition. In 1974, Richard opened a studio that appealed to people of all different weights, including those who were obese. His studio was originally called the Anatomy Asylum, but eventually renamed Slimmons, like a combination of the words slim and Simmons. Richard personally taught exercise and motivational classes at the studio for many years. He became successful and opened other studios across the country. Richard's career skyrocketed over the next several years. He sold $160 million worth of weight loss cards. He starred in the regrettable and frightening Sweating to the Oldies video series, which unintentionally pioneered the fitness horror genre. The series generated about $200 million in revenue. Richard had a talk show, hosted a cooking show. He released 6 cookbooks. From 1979 until 1983, he played himself on the soap opera General Hospital. Richard also played himself on other shows like Chips, Whose Line Is It Anyway?, The Larry Sanders Show, Saturday Night Live, and Amazing Stories. He made a number of guest appearances on various shows, including Super Password, Win, Lose, or Draw, $25,000 Pyramid, Hollywood Squares, and Price is Right. Richard was a frequent guest on Late Night with David Letterman and The Howard Stern Show. He was also featured in several television ads. Richard Simmons became one of the most recognizable fitness gurus in the world. The main reason for Richard's popularity was the sense that he developed a genuine connection with people who were trying to lose weight. Richard was extremely accessible to those seeking his advice. Tour buses would stop by his mansion in Hollywood Hills. He would walk out and talk to the people on the bus. After attending an event, Richard would stay for hours and talk to people, trying to help them. He received stacks of letters in the mail, and he answered every one of them. In addition, he would follow up with people. He placed hundreds of telephone calls per week. Before moving to the timeline of the incident, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, 10% Happier. There are many different ways to address feelings of anxiety and to cope with stress. Mindfulness meditation is one of those ways. 10% Happier offers guided meditations practical teachings, and simple exercises that help people to become proficient at meditation. The lessons offered by their meditation teachers are direct, helpful, and practical. It's easy to find a way to apply the techniques to one's life. The lessons are not over the top, unrealistic, or fanciful, but rather they appeal to people who want straightforward instructions on how to meditate. Various courses incorporate elements of cognitive behavior therapy, as well as techniques to improve self-reflection. In a world that moves quickly, sometimes it's a good idea to slow down and enjoy the benefits of mindfulness meditation. Get a 1-month free trial to the 10% Happier app and access simple exercises that help you with life's challenges. Redeem at 10%.com/Dr. Grande. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On January 11, 2014, Richard Simmons made a public appearance at a charity event. People did not realize it at the time, but this was his last public appearance. On February 15, 2014, he didn't show up at an exercise class he was supposed to be teaching. After years of being an enthusiastic, energetic, and highly visible fitness guru, Richard simply disappeared from public view. He stayed in his Hollywood Hills mansion with his longtime housekeeper. His sudden and unexplained disappearance was unnerving to many people. It led to many theories about what could have happened to him. Did aliens take him to address a weight crisis on their planet? Or was he attacked by a killer sofa? The police were notified out of concern for Richard's well-being. They visited his mansion and found him limping due to problems with his knees, but otherwise fine. Richard called the Today Show on March 14, 2016, and indicated that he wanted to be alone for a while. No one was holding him hostage. In June of 2016, Richard was acting in a strange manner in his mansion. Someone who was there called 911, and Richard was transported to the hospital. In April of 2017, he was hospitalized for severe indigestion. He made a comment after this on Facebook saying that he was not missing, rather under the weather. In May of 2017, Richard Simmons filed a lawsuit against several media companies for defamation. These companies had published stories claiming that Richard was undergoing gender reassignment. In September of that same year, Richard was defeated in court and ordered to pay the defendant's attorney fees. The claims against Richard were false. However, the court said that the misidentification of a person as transgender is not actionable defamation absent special damages. In 2022, TMZ released a documentary about Richard Simmons. According to the documentary, Richard had his right knee replaced. He needed to get his left knee replaced as well, but did not want to get the surgery because recovery from the first surgery had been painful. Richard used a cane to walk, and his mood appeared to be depressed. He dropped out of sight because he did not want to be remembered as someone old and frail. He wanted to end his career at the peak of his game. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. During the active portion of Richard's career, he developed a persona that has been described as flamboyant, outrageous, overly cheerful, and obnoxious. When he was making a guest appearance, one could never know what he was going to do next. Sometimes he would spontaneously start singing. Richard often dressed in colorful and creative outfits and would dye his hair various colors. His high level of enthusiasm and energy attracted both negative and positive attention, but for the most part, he was well liked. His detractors viewed him at worst as annoying. His fans viewed him as an incredible fitness guru who revolutionized the pursuit of weight loss goals. His persona led to incredible wealth for Richard. Which brings me to item number 2. It appears as though Richard was really a performance artist. The persona he created was not the same as his personality. The persona was highly extroverted and highly agreeable, whereas Richard's true personality was introverted and perhaps not quite as agreeable. Richard was a loner. He described himself as a recluse. He was quiet, solitary, did not socialize with friends, did not go out to parties, and sometimes would cry when he was alone. The crying behavior occurred in his public persona as well, starting in the 1990s. It would appear as though the persona was in battle with the personality, which brings me to item number 3. A key part of Richard's persona was appearing to be genuine and caring. He really understood what people were going through when they were trying to lose weight. He had been through weight loss himself. People could call into question the authenticity of his eccentric mannerisms, but few doubted his sincerity. He connected with people in a way that few celebrities had achieved or had any interest in achieving. There was almost a spiritual or religious component to his image. His fans placed him on a pedestal. He did something amazing. He was a person that they just wanted to be near. He was a source of inspiration during their journey to lose weight. When people connected with his weight loss message, the connection was powerful and emotional. Richard really didn't offer anything new or interesting as far as weight loss techniques. His special contribution was his persona. I think what might have happened with Richard is that he had sympathy for people instead of empathy. Sympathy is when a person feels what another person is feeling. Empathy is when a person understands what another person is feeling. In professions that require empathy, like mental health counseling, it is important to maintain the boundary, to have empathy, but to avoid sympathy. Over time, a clinician who sympathizes with clients will burn out. They will end up hurting their clients and destroying their own career. The sympathy component of Richard's behavior made him a legend in the fitness world, but it came at a tremendous cost. In addition, the frequent crying and the fervent enthusiasm of his fans, who were sometimes labeled groupies, made people skeptical about Richard's intentions and about his genuineness. This takes me to item number 4. Richard's career was strong for many years. His popularity decreased somewhat over time, but he continued to make millions of dollars. The unquestioning dedication of some of his fans and Richard's intense contact with them made people wonder if Richard was faking all those tears, or if he was authentic. Was all this just a money-making scheme, or did Richard happen to become a millionaire doing what he loved to do, helping people? Perhaps money wasn't the motive. Rather, Richard needed to represent himself as a savior. Maybe he was gaining something from his status as an easily accessible, dramatic, and enmeshed fitness guru. This mystery about Richard's authenticity became prominent. It was one of the key questions to which people wanted an answer. Was this connected in some way with his disappearance? Like, did he make his money and just figure that he was done? This brings me to item number 5. Was Richard authentic, and why did he disappear from public life? When looking at Richard's history, I'm inclined to believe that he was both inauthentic and authentic at the same time. Here's what I mean by this. On the inauthentic side, Richard's persona was too distant from his personality. I think he took on the persona because he believed it would be effective and popular. It was a persona that would help him achieve his goals of helping people and making money. He was correct on both counts. The problem is that the significant difference between the persona and the personality meant that Richard's life was exhausting. He had to maintain this appearance of high energy for decades, when inside he just wanted to relax and be by himself. On the authentic side, I think Richard did genuinely want to help people to lose weight, but he could not maintain the boundaries necessary to keep himself from burning out. He couldn't be the person that his fans needed him to be anymore. Why did Richard Simmons leave the public life? I think it was probably a combination of declining physical abilities, like what we saw in the documentary, and he burned out due to his personal investment in advice seekers. It was a combination of both physical and mental factors. If he could not maintain his persona on his terms, he wasn't going to do it at all. He did not have any way to dial back his enthusiasm. Rather, it was all or nothing. In 1981, Richard said, "The day I don't love any of this, I walk away." Evidently, he wasn't kidding. As far as the sudden component, like why did he have to depart so abruptly, this may have more to do with Richard's emotions, like he was just bad at saying goodbye. Now moving to my final thoughts. Some people are angry with Richard for dropping out of sight, but everybody has the right to retire, even people who dedicate their lives to helping others. It's not reasonable to believe that Richard should have died working, although death can be thought of as a backup retirement plan for many people. By suddenly retreating from public life, perhaps Richard imparts one more lesson. If someone refuses to exercise proper boundaries as far as helping others, someday they will feel the weight of the world and sweat because they are burning out. Those are my thoughts on the case of Richard Simmons. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be as intriguing as a killer recliner posing as a killer sofa. Thanks for watching.